Alright guys, I'm back. This is John from Containment Crew, and I've got the RapidStrike here. I've gotten the screws out of it, and before I go about trying to fix this thing, I want to at least film an overview of what's going on inside it, both for my reference and for you guys. So I've got the camera positioned between me and the blaster right now because of the nature of the way this shell is set up. I can't fully fillet it open, so I need to have the camera right here. But we're going to bring this forward and I'm going to pry this open. I've already had it open once just to get a look at it myself. But we're going to pop this open. And the first thing you note is the shells are actually connected by this lead going to the battery chamber. I can't see a way of getting this completely apart without cutting this lead. So for the moment, this is the look at this that we're going to have. So let me bring this in a little closer because there's not too much going on up here in the front end. It's basically just the barrel and the battery holder. But this is where all the meat of the blaster is, and actually this stock, once you get the blaster open, this just slides right out. Just like that. So let me frame this back up again for you guys and we'll start going over some things. Tilt the camera a little bit. Alright. So first things first, we have right down here, this is our mag release. This isn't attached to any switch, but it's, you know, a fairly simple mech. You just push it in and, well, it's not working because it's not, the blaster's not together, but you can get the idea. And this is, this first lock that we have here, this is an electronic switch here that's detecting whether or not a magazine is actually in the blaster. When it's depressed, you know, power can flow through. That's our first major lock, and of course I pop it out on accident. Let me see if I can get this back in, because I kind of want this thing in fully working order. Alright, the next thing, I'm going to avoid this whole mess for the moment, but we've got our motor cage. I haven't pulled this out. I will eventually, but it looks like it's set up pretty much identical to the way the Strife or the new Raven's motor cage is set up. But up here in the top, hopefully I can angle this correctly, but we've got a switch up here, an electronic switch here for the jam door, and it actually looks like in the native state of the blaster it's actually checking to see if the jam door has been opened or not. And the way the jam door is set up, if you actually pull it out, it doesn't affect the switch, so theoretically you could actually pull the jam door out on this and the blaster would never know the difference. So that's just an interesting little note going on there. The next thing we've got here is we've got the pusher assembly. And I haven't opened this cage up, but I imagine it's fairly simple. It looks like, from the look of it, that the actual motor is housed in here. And it's going into a gear system that makes this fly forward when all the appropriate locks and switches are depressed. If we trace this back down here, this looks like the main check switch for this side to see if a mag is in again. This is actually a two-part switch. It's both mechanical and electrical. It depresses an electrical switch located in here, and it also frees the trigger up for movement. But it's got a third part that the trigger still can't move unless the acceleration trigger is down, and now the trigger can move freely. If you take either of these switches, these mechanical switches off, you can't move the trigger. So you need all three. It's a three-part mechanical switch, or mechanical lock there, that's involved in that. The switch for the actual trigger seems to be located under this board here. Again, I haven't pried this open to see exactly what's going on, but that's where that switch is. And the acceleration trigger switch is down in here, and this is the one that I'm pretty sure isn't working right with this blaster. Although all these switches, the electric switches in this, all seem to be three-prong switches, and that's in order to have all these functions work independently. So that if you all had single-point switches, you'd have to have every single trigger pulled and every single switch down in order to get the motors to rev. But the way that it's set up, so that the acceleration trigger is supposed to be independent, you'll be able to rev that, and these switches still are in the closed state, but closed state for a different path. And right now, in order to fix that's kind of what I'm stuck at right now, is tracing the path and finding all the possible connections where it might be affecting this acceleration trigger. But I'm going to cut there. I'm going to pop some other parts off this blaster and start going over a little bit more of what's actually behind these cages and maybe what's on the other side of these things and get you a look at the motor cage. So I'll be right back. Alright, so again I'm back, and I just took the screws out of the motor cage and I started to pry this up, and I noticed something very interesting. When we go and we pull the motor cage out, there is this board sitting there, and it looks like a circuit board. It's even been lacquered. You can see the little, I don't know, maybe the camera can't pick that up, but there's little drops of lacquer on there from, I guess, overflow. But this is it looks like they put this over there to protect everything, and it's connected to some wires going somewhere, and then they were crimped off and soldered onto this. So I'm guessing the way they've got this set up is that if you don't really know what you're doing and you break this off to try to get at the motors, that breaking this board off will probably, I'm guessing maybe it will sever this connection here and it will render this thing useless unless you kind of know what you're doing. I don't really want to take this apart anymore for risk of breaking it, because I don't really feel like dragging out my soldering iron right now. But I don't know how well the camera is going to get this, but if you can zoom that in. But just from looking at this zoomed in here, we can kind of see in there's a resistor set up on this side and this side. You got your normal leads going in there, and we've got these rubber retention things hanging in there. It looks very similar to a strife cage, except for this weird board sitting on top. And right now I'm not really going to mess with that, so I'm going to move on to looking at the pusher motor and see if I can notice anything about that. Alright guys, back again, and I've gotten the screws out of what's holding the motor cage down, so I'm going to pry this out now. And it comes out fairly easy. So here's our pusher. This is our main pusher rod here. I don't know why there's a spring there. Oh, you know what maybe that is? I bet I know what that's for. That spring there is probably for when the pusher goes into the mag and there's no dart there, the dart pusher on the mag will be up, so this just caves in like that in order to not damage the magazine. That's probably what that's for. Let's see, where... Oh boy, there's something going on there. Let me zoom in on this for you guys. You got some very large resistors going here. I'm guessing that's for some sort of power regulation. Some little tiny resistors on there. Again, those also might be the thermal cutoffs. I'm not positive on that. And we got a big blob of solder there. Look at that. That just looks like a mess. Anything else going on with this? That's pretty much all it is. There's probably, looks like there's a gear setup here. Let me zoom out. But let me pop this open and see if I can show you the inside of this real quick. Hopefully nothing goes flying everywhere, but I have a strange feeling that things might with the way these things are sometimes set up. Let's pry this up. Okay, it's not solvent welded together or anything. And oops. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Huh. That actually makes a lot of sense now. Okay, so coming off the motor, we've got this worm gear that turns this gear, and this big kind of flywheel gear. So yeah, when this... I wish I could pop one of these out so this would spin freely. But yeah, when this turns around, just pushes this follows this track and then back over. That's why the motion on this is so smooth. Good design there. Good design. Alright, let me get this back together before I break it. But there you go, that's the basic little gearbox we got going on here for the pusher motor. Alright, so we're back again, and the last piece of this puzzle that we have here is this whole trigger mech and electronics box going on here. So it looks like it's just got two screws in it. One is right up here and the other is hiding down in here between some wires. Hopefully you can see that on the camera, but I'm going to go after this little one in here first. Okay. And this one up top, and hopefully this whole thing doesn't explode, because I see this as being a problem getting it back together already. Oh, drop my screwdriver. Alright, so there's one clip down here. Any other clips hiding out on it? Alright, let's see if this, let's see how bad this explodes. Alright, so I'm back, and as you can see I did not get this open. I did take a knife to this tab and I did break the point there where it was solvent welded, but I can't crack this open. It's either tabbed someplace else that I can't find, or it's solvent welded someplace else that I can't find. And I feel like if I pry at it too much, it's just going to shatter and things are going to come out of alignment and it's never going to work again. So I don't really know what much more to say about this. I already went over the way the mechanical lock works. The main trigger switch is located under this point. There's a secondary switch again up here along with this mechanical lock that detects whether or not the mag is in. And the acceleration trigger down here, which I believe on mine is actually gone bad because it doesn't accelerate, but the switch, the electronic switch for that, is all the way down in here. There's a series of little locks that when you press it in, this one presses this one down, that presses another one in, and presses the switch down. So a little bit of over complexity for just one little thing. But it looks like mechanically this thing is functioning right, so somewhere in this, probably the switch, but actually, the way that this thing is set up, it could actually be any one of these switches that went bad that is keeping this from triggering the acceleration. But there we have it. You know, that's pretty much the internals as far as I can show with being able to get it open and not get it broken. The wiring's a little complex, and oh, I didn't even notice this. There is actually some sort of lock mechanism up here that I guess... Okay, so you can't put a... Okay. What this looks like is when if the pusher rod is extended, like I guess if it jams or something, that this lock here keeps this trigger, this mag lock from pushing in, so that you can't load a mag if the pusher arm's extended. I guess that's just another little safety thing, but I'm glad I noticed that. It's this orange tab up here, and it looks like everything fell back into place and doesn't want to come out, but well, there we have it. After popping this open and looking at it, I'm not sure if I want to mess around with this too much, but I kind of would like to get it open. But you know, if anybody was really curious about what's going on inside the RapidStrike, there it is for you. Hope you guys enjoyed.